A lot of people talk about the idea of running the wet effects, especially in a wet, dry, wet system, as 100% wet with no dry in it whatsoever. Do you have a feeling about that versus involving some dry in the cabinets? It seems to me that the majority of the classic rigs typically didn't have fully wet stereo cabinets. They always had some amount of dry in them. It was rare that you found people doing 100% wet with no dry. Do you have a sense sonically or functionally as to a reason to do one or the other?
The first thing I should make sure that people know is that definitely the effects themselves should be 100% wet, the pedals themselves. Otherwise, you start kind of losing control of your levels because you'll have your reverb plus the dry signal and your delay plus the dry signal. You basically start boosting your level because you kind of keep adding copies of your dry signal together.
Yeah.
Once you've got your pedal set to 100% wet or kill dry, as some of them call it, then there's definitely two schools of thought on that. The nice thing with this line mixer, which is something we didn't have in our previous one, is the wet level and the dry level controls. And so it's super easy once you connect this to try it for yourself and see. And generally speaking, you keep the wet level all the way up, but then you can start with the dry level at 0 and then just start turning it up a little bit and see whether you like it or not, and see basically whether you want any of that dry signal coming out. But it's much like doing parallel or wet, dry, wet. It's really a matter of personal preference. The nice thing about having the dry level is you do have that immediacy and the transients and all that. And so you get more punch, even if you mix in a little bit into the wet cabinets as well.
What I really
Yeah.
like about this, which I can't remember off the top of my head, it's been so long if the original one had this or not, but you can have a rig set up for wet, dry, wet with 3 independent outputs using this box. So you could use the buffered out, which is the yellow line if you're watching, or basically just your dry signal going straight through the box to the other side. Send that to an amp. And then you can send out to your 2 wet amps as well with only receiving the wet signal. So tons of separation like we were talking about before. That's great. And that's for, I know Mason, Brian, Ron, you guys can all relate to this. When we're doing our stadium tours, that's probably what we're going to be doing as guitar players. You know, we have
Oh, of
3
course.
amps on stage. Yeah. Okay, good. Just making sure you guys are all on board. Madison Square Gardens next week, when we're all playing there, we're
Totally.
all going to have wet, dry, wet rigs running to 3 independent amps. But then when we're back home in our personal studios and it's a smaller venue, we can blend in the dry with the dry mix knob and we can run that dry signal to the wet outputs. So now you can run a stereo rig, but still have some dry mixed in there to your desired level with your wet effects still in parallel with the parallel dry signal going to 2 amps or maybe 1 amp. And I love how this box actually allows you to do that, you know, just by turning that potentiometer, which is really handy. So you don't have to, and correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, Ron, but you don't have to decide today, this is my wet, dry, wet rig. I always need to run 3 amps. You could go back to a bit of a simpler rig by mixing in dry if that's your preferred way of running it.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, yeah, you can go down from 3 to 2 to 1 amp even if you're limited, and it's just a matter of letting that dry signal into the wet outputs. Then you have that flexibility.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really cool.